Good morning, welcome back to the channel. Last few weeks really, it's been really cold. We're talking -5 out there and not much warmer in here, to be honest, in the garage. I've been planning a couple of rides on the Bonneville and a couple of jobs in the garage, but it's just too cold. The roads are icy and this, that and that. Anyway, I've decided to do a little video about the bike that actually got me back into biking. Got my license originally when I was 16 in 1970. Oh, it's a long time ago now, isn't it? And I had the Honda 50 or Honda 70 Cub, I think it was, and then a Honda 175, and then I got into motocross, or scrambling as it was called then. So I had to sell the road bike, so I'd been on the road maybe couple of years, 3 years maybe, and I had to get a car to tow the trailer to carry the scrambler around to different meetings. So I missed out on the road, that's what I'm saying. Anyway, I competed in motocross and then in pre-65 motocross or classic motocross till mid-late 80s, something like that, and I lost touch with biking. I used to watch GP on the MotoGP on the TV and stuff, and occasionally I'd buy motorcycle news. And then around about 2004, 2005, I didn't really intend to get back into biking. But what I did do was, I thought I'd get a project. I'd get a little bike to work on here in the garage, and ideally I would have liked a British bike. I always admired the Bonnevilles and that sort of thing. Anyway, I started looking around, and the British bikes, BSAs, James, Bonnevilles, Triumphs and stuff, they were crazy money. You were paying a couple of £1,000 for a box full of bits and pieces, basically. That's what it amounted to. So I started to widen my search. Anyway, on eBay I spotted a machine I didn't know, I won't say anything about, but I knew the name, Yamaha, and this was an Xj750, advertised on eBay as a non-runner for £230. It was up in Hull. So I looked at the picture and one or two other things, and as you can see from this picture, it didn't look much. I didn't know it was a non-runner. Anyway, I put a bidding of 250 quid, a maximum bid, and I got it for £230. To me, it was a twin shock. It was round headlamp, like the Bonnevilles and the British bikes. It was shaft drive, although I didn't realise this till I got it home. It was an Xj750, and I found out later that it wasn't a UK model. The speedometer was in kilometres, and in the equivalent, it had done about just under 47,000 miles. The Xj750, which I'd got, was basically a US or a Japanese model, I believe. In the UK, we got the Xj650, which had square headlights. In fact, it had two headlights, I think, if you look it up properly. But anyway, this thing went up to Hull, hired a trailer up to Hull with a friend of mine, paid the man the money, and came home, as you can see here, with the trailer. Came home in March. It came back in March 2005, and then the strip down and the rebuild progressed from there. And here's basically a documentary of how I went about that and what we did, or what I did. It's all in photographs, unfortunately, because then I wasn't videoing. Video machines weren't that, they were quite expensive at the time. So I'll do my best to show it in the photographs I took during the restoration of the XJ. As I say, it wasn't really, I never really thought about riding on the road again, but once I'd finished this thing, as you'll see at the end, it was a lovely machine. But and it got me back into biking, and we went on from there. So we'll continue with the shall we call it a slideshow and an explanation of what was going on.
First of all, started by stripping all the panels, the tank, wiring loom, lights, etc. off the machine. Then get the engine out, which was pretty heavy, I have to say. That left me with rolling chassis, as you can see here, and then down to a bare frame. Got all the parts ready for rubbing down and painting.
Now, at this point in the, shall we call it, restoration, I won't say it all went wrong, but it all got slightly out of hand. What happened was, I was working myself at the time, and in a little machine shop, we were precision grinders, and I was doing a fair amount of work for a guy that was local. I won't name him, but he restored bikes, all sorts of machines, to a very high standard. He had a huge collection, which he very kindly showed me his collection of machines, and him and his son, they restored these things to a really high standard. Anyway, I got to this point where the frame was stripped and all the bits and pieces were off of it. And here one day I was doing a job for him, and he asked me how I was getting on, and I told him, and I said, I think I'm gonna rub the frame down and paint it myself. And he said, no. He says, I've got a load of stuff going off to the powder coaters. He said, give it to me. Give me all the bits, the stand, the frame, all the various bits that you want in black or powder coating. He said, I'll send them in with my batch, and he didn't charge me. Now, the problem was, when it came back, the standard of that powder coating was out of this world. There was not a blemish on it. They'd shot blasted the frame, and they'd powder coated it. It was fantastic. So basically, that then set the standard for the rest of the restoration, or the rest of the rebuild. And there was no cutting corners after this. It was just get on with it and do it properly, which is what I endeavoured to do. So while the frame was away being coated, I got on with the other bits, and here we have the brake caliper, or calipers. You can see they're pretty dirty and mucky, but basically it all needed was a good clean, new seal kit, and it was all reassembled and in perfect working order. So that was the brake calipers done. So then we come to the bodywork, the tank, the seat cowl, side panels, front mudguard, etc. I did most of the prep myself, although I left the tank alone. It had a few dents in it. Rubbed them down, primed them, and then a friend of mine who's got a garage and does some paint work, he painted them in this metallic maroon red colour. No idea if it's a Yamaha colour, I'm sure it wasn't, but I chose it because I liked it. Basically, I wasn't that fussed about keeping everything standard, so I liked the colour, and that was that. I'd forgotten to mention earlier that the fact that I had the engine running before I started the strip down. I bought a new battery for it and connected it up, put some fuel in the tank, which luckily the tank wasn't rusty inside. It looked tatty, but it wasn't rusty inside, so cleaned all the lines out, run some fuel through it, fresh fuel, put a new battery on it, as I say, and eventually it started. It was running rough at first. As it warmed up, it's got a manual choke on it. As it warmed up, I was able to get a reading from the alternator. It was a Hitachi alternator system on it. It was getting 14.8 volts or something. It was all checking out to the book. Toshiba regulator rectifier. So it was recognisable names on these parts. So yeah, it ran fine. So that's why I carried on, and it was then time to address. I'd done a lot of work, as you can see, with the frame and the whatever, and there was one big elephant in the room that I'd put to the back, or elephant in the garage, if you like, that I'd put to the back of my mind, which we'll come to in the photographs, which raised its ugly head when I took the engine out of the frame. But I did know basically the engine was strong, and I'd already done a bit of research to find that I could get the valve shims and any other parts. I could get a rebuild kit for the or a service kit for the carburettor, the carburettors that were on it. So I carried on. So here's what happened.
So here is the elephant. The casting with the engine mounting, part of the casting was left in the frame when I took the engine out. It was a very, very clean break. It was almost like a china cup when you break a cup. It fitted back in perfectly, so I was pretty sure that I could get it repaired. I had done it. I did know a company in West Bromwich, ABR Welding, and I knew Bill very well. He was also a biker, and they could do laser welding. So I took it along, showed it to Bill, and he didn't seem to think there would be a problem. Left it with him for a day or two, and went back, and he'd done it for me. A reasonable charge as well, I thought. After a bit of tidying up with the Dremel inside more carefully, because the internal components came very close to the casing, I was very careful with that, and tidied up the outside, and great, away we went. So then I was able to strip the rest of the engine out, all the gears. There was hardly any. Well, there was no wear basically. There was no chips on any of the gears. It all checked out very, very well. And the bores, checked the bores. It's my job actually, measuring and checking and creating precision bores. They were perfectly well. They were well within tolerance. Just showing slight glazing, so I honed the bores, put a new set of rings in because I could get them at a reasonable price. The rest of it was in remarkable condition. It was really well engineered, that engine. So time to put it back together. Now, when it come before I put it back together, I'd already decided early on that I wasn't a great fan of the black engine. So I decided to remove all the black powder coating and expose the bare alloy, if you like. Now, this is one of them jobs where it sounded like a great idea, or it seemed like a great idea, but once you got started, you wished that you hadn't started. But well, of course, once you have started, it's too late to turn back. It was hours and hours and hours of laborious removing, paint stripper, little tiny wire brushes. Oh, it was a real pain. It took weeks and weeks and weeks. And then when I got it all stripped, the castings weren't in great condition, so they weren't the same colour. So I ended up using an alloy engine paint, high temperature engine paint, and a lacquer on top, which stood up well, as time proved later on. But that was a job I wish I hadn't started. Now it was time to address the bank of carburetors, 4 carbs, as you can see. Basically, just stripped them, methodically cleaned them, took loads of photographs, cleaned them all out with petrol and brake cleaner and thinners, and put it all back together, and they seemed fine afterwards. Job done. So quite soon we had a rolling chassis. Put the lights back on. I hadn't attacked the wiring yet. I'll come to that later. But the wheels and tyres, the wheels are paint stripped and repainted in black. Left the rims polished alloy. Put a new set of tyres on. They were the Bridgestone Battle Axe BT45. So here we have the rolling chassis all done. So now it was back on with the bodywork and the tank and everything. Just make sure it all fitted properly, which it did. Seat didn't need any attention. It was in pretty good condition, so I left that as it was. It was time to put the engine back in. I decided to put it back in without the head on. It was a lot easier to handle without the head on. Went in a treat. Knew the repaired engine mounting lined up great. So then it was back on with the heads. The head and the carburetors starting to look like a bike again now. Now it was down to the The wiring, which I've been putting off for a while, was in pretty bad condition. There was bits have been added on over the years. So I decided to start from scratch. I managed to get a second-hand harness and managed to splice pieces in where pieces have been butchered and cut out and whatever. Decided to put a new fuse box in. The old one was the glass fuses, so I put one in with the blade fuses. All this was from all my components were from vehicle wiring products. Who, at the end of the day, I think I had them on speed dial, but they're good stuff, and it all worked. And got it all back together, rebound it, and everything seemed to work. So I was pretty pleased with that. So there we have it, finished from March 2005 to March 2007. Exactly 2 years. There were a few other little jobs that I did. I put new handlebars on, as you can see. They were slightly higher than the originals, made it a bit more comfortable for me anyway. Was MOT'd in the March, as I say. Took it to street bike on a trailer actually. And that's it, all done, 2 years. And it ran perfectly.
So, from this to this in 2 years. Now this slideshow, shall we call it, is obviously a bit simplified. I mean, the big issue was the engine mounting, as we saw, but there were other things along the way. There was the engine lacquer reacted. I had to do that again. There was various strip nuts and bolts and threads and whatever. I had to re-tap, re-bore, re-tap, whatever. So it wasn't quite as straightforward as it looked, but I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. I used it for 3 years then. I did all sorts of it, commuting, ride outs. I did my first ride to the wall on it in 2009, I think that was. Yeah, I did a lot of miles on it, and it never missed a beat. Only once I had to get recovered. It wouldn't start. Got recovered by the RAC, got it home. And in my defence, they never spotted it either. I'd inadvertently knocked the kill switch to off, and I think we've all done that at some point. Yes, I'm sure we have. But anyway, it never missed a beat. So where is it now, I hear you ask? I sold it. The other thing we didn't cover was the cost. I stopped keeping tally of the cost quite early on. I realised it was never going to be a viable financial project. So, and if you count in the hours I spent on it over that 2 years, it was pointless keeping a tally, so I didn't. Anyway, I sold it. What happened was 2010, June of 2010, I went to Triumph Birmingham to buy a t-shirt and my wife was with me, and we saw this, and we bought it. I bought the Bonneville, but I did keep the Yamaha. We had a lock-up garage at the time. I hadn't got room in this garage here to store it, so we stored it in the lock-up. But I was using the Bonneville all the time, and I just wasn't using it. I was having to keep the battery here and keep it on a top-up and reconnect the battery. I used it occasionally, but anyway, in the end, we wanted to get rid of the garage, the lock-up, so I sold it. In 2011 I sold it. Sold it to a local guy, guy in Kings Norton. I won't say how much I got for it, but it doesn't even touch the sides when it comes to how much it cost to restore. But he was happy with it, with the price. I was happy with the price at the time. He was going to buy it because it was shaft drive. He wanted to put a sidecar on it, which I believe he did. I've checked before I did this film, and it's actually on a sawn. I don't know if he still owns it, but it's on a sawn at the moment, so at least it hasn't been scrapped off. So thanks for watching. As you can see, I bought the Bonneville in 2010. If you go back into my channel, you'll see various films, ride outs, work I've done on the Bonneville in the last 14 years, so if you wouldn't mind watching some of those. And while we're on the subject, if you would consider clicking like and subscribe, it's completely free of charge. It does help me to see what's being watched on the channel. It's a great help, and thanks again for watching, and keep up to date with my new films. Thank you.